Every year, it feels like the amount of tax that we pay keeps going up, and we're just expected to deal with it. But you don't actually have to. Most people in the UK are overpaying tax and they don't even realize it. And it's not your fault. It's just most people never get taught these basic tax hacks. So in this video, I'm going to cover 7 different ways to reduce your tax bill legally. And this isn't just theory. I've actually used these myself to get a tax refund from HMRC. Even though I'm actually still waiting for it, but that's another story. So you want to start with the really basic stuff, by using all the allowances that you have. So the first one is really easy. It's just claiming tax relief for your job expenses. So for example, if you've been working from home, using any uniforms or any vehicles that you use for work, any fees, etc., as long as your employer isn't giving you the money back, or they're not giving you an alternative. And you can see here you get tax relief based on what you spend and the rate at which you pay tax. So for example, if you claim £60 and you pay a tax rate at 20% in that year, then the amount you're entitled to is £12, which is 20% of £60. Now the next one is for those that are married. Now this is where one of the partners is earning less than the personal allowance, which is £12,570. And then at that point they are able to transfer £1,260 of their personal allowance to their partner, and that reduces the other partner's tax bill by up to £252, and you can actually backdate this as far back as 2021. So then this can really add up. Now moving on to investment, so there's 2 allowances that people that invest in assets have. So they have capital gains tax, which is an allowance for any profit you make on selling an asset. And there's also dividend tax, which is an allowance when you get paid dividend, and that's now set at £500. Now for capital gains tax, a few years ago it was £12,300, and now it's come all the way down to £3,000. And now because the allowance is so small, you want to make sure that you're using it each year if you can, and to make it make sense for your investments. But now you can also actually carry forward losses. So say for example you invested in crypto, but it's a bad year for crypto, then you can actually claim those losses and roll them forward. So say in a coming year you make more profit than the £3,000 allowance, you can actually offset that by the tax loss that you've carried forward from previous years. You just need to report it in your self-assessment, and you can find out how to do that by just searching online. But yeah, the allowances are so low, so everyone that's investing should really start off with ISAs. So ISAs, or individual savings accounts, are just tax wrappers, where any profit or any dividend income you earn is tax-free forever. Now this is one of the really good things that the government gives UK residents. So in any given year you can save £20,000 in ISAs, and you can split that across various different ISAs. They've just announced actually though that cash ISAs will be limited to £12,000 going forward for people under 65. Now ISAs are really popular, and there are around 5,000 people that are ISA millionaires, and they can withdraw money tax-free whenever they want. So ISAs are really important. For Muslims, there's not that many cash ISA options, but really most people should be looking at trying to save in stocks and shares ISA, or innovative finance ISA, or lifetime ISA, where you can actually invest in assets. Now as long as those assets themselves are permissible, then your ISA is also permissible. Think of an ISA as like a shopping basket. If you put alcohol and pork in it, then obviously it's not going to be permissible. But if you put bread and chocolates, then it's fine. That's how an ISA works. You want to make sure the underlying investments are fine. And one area that I see people make a mistake is property investing. Now there's actually lots of tax involved when investing in property, and it keeps going up. Like just this year they've actually announced increases, but also the changes to the renters' rights. That's going to make buy-to-lets less attractive for landlords. And my thing always has been is, why go to all the hassle of trying to invest in property when you can actually invest in property via an ISA, and that way you don't have to worry about the tax implications. So for example, you have an innovative finance ISA, so you can use that with Curate or Nesta, or you can actually buy real estate linked investments in a stocks and shares ISA, which I'll cover more in a future video inshallah. So yeah, ISAs are really important, and this is something that everyone can start using. Don't just think, oh, if you don't have 20,000 to spend, then it's not for you. You can start with £50, £100, £1,000, build it up. Work with what you have, right? Because why pay tax on any amount of your investments when you don't need to? Now next I want to move on to something that I feel like the Muslim community is really neglecting, and that's tax relief when you donate to a charity. Now most of us know what gift aid is, so when you donate to a charity and you select gift aid, then the charity gets an extra 25%. But what a lot of people don't realise is, if you are a high rate taxpayer, so that's if you earn more than £50,270 a year and above, then you can actually claim back the additional tax that you pay, because gift aid works on the first 20% tax that everyone pays. But if you're paying 40% tax or 45% tax if you're earning more than 100k, then you can actually claim that 20-25% difference back, and that can go back into your pocket directly. Now you can keep that money, or you just donate that to charity again, so more goes to charity. But this is super useful, and this is especially true when you're claiming gift aid in your zakat. And then the other flip side of this is, when you use gift aid donations, you can actually reduce your net income. So say for example you're earning £105,000, which obviously most people don't, but at that point you lose your personal allowance. But if you have given, let's say, £10,000 worth of gift aid donations, then that reduces your income to £95,000, and that means you don't actually pay any tax at that 45% rate, but also additionally you don't lose your personal tax allowance. And if you look at something like child benefit, for example, so child benefit starts to taper off at around 60,000, all the way up to 80,000. And let's say you're earning 80,000, at this point you're actually not eligible for any child tax benefit. But let's say, for argument's sake, you donate 20,000 via gift aid eligible donations, then that actually reduces your net income to £60,000. And that means you completely preserve your child benefit, and that's worth thousands. And it's not just gift aid that you can do this with, it's actually also with pensions. So if we look here, let's say you contribute £80 into your pension, then the government tops that up with £20, which is just the basic 20% tax relief that everyone gets that is paying tax. And that means your total contribution is £100. But if you're a higher rate taxpayer, then you're actually able to claim back the additional amount of tax that you pay. So if you look at this chart here, so the cost to make a £100 contribution varies across what type of taxpayer you are. So if you're a basic rate taxpayer, it costs you £80 to make a £100 contribution. But for a higher rate, it's only £60. And then for an additional rate, people earning over 100k is £55. And the 20% difference between higher rate tax and the basic tax rate, you can actually claim that back into your pocket. And this is a massive saving, and it allows you to reduce your net income, just as I was speaking before. So you can go from 80,000 to 60,000 via a combination of pension contribution and gift aid donations. And both of these are perfectly legal ways of reducing your tax. I mean, the government wants people to give to charity, right? That's why there's tax relief on gift aid. But also the government wants people to save for their pension, or they should want that, even though they are changing things to make it a little bit worse. But pensions are still good overall. And I'll do a whole separate video on pensions inshallah. So do make sure you're using this. Now I want to move on to the last method of reducing tax, and this is looking specifically at inheritance tax. Now we all know inheritance tax at 40% of someone's estate above the allowance, which is £325,000. It's quite a lot. I mean, you've been taxed all your life, and then at the end, when you die, then before your kids or whoever's your inheritors are get the money, then there's a 40% tax charge, which is quite obscene. So obviously, most people would want to reduce that where they can. And a really good way of doing that is through junior ISAs. The same ISAs as before, but these are specifically for kids under 18 that are living in the UK. And you're able to contribute £9,000 into a junior ISA every single year per child. And this means they will never have to pay inheritance tax. Now obviously not everyone can do £9,000, but if you were to gift your kids money and then you were to die within the next 7 years, then they would actually pay inheritance tax. So this is a really good way of completely avoiding that by giving money to your kids through these junior ISA products. And you don't have to use the full £9,000 allowance. It can actually still work pretty nicely with a lot less than that. So let's have a look at an investment calculator. So let's assume that you're contributing $50 or £50 a year. We are achieving a return rate of 7%, which is doable. And we put £50 a month for 18 years, and starting with zero, how much are we left with after 18 years? We are left with 21,000, and half of that has come from the return. So this says interest, but it means return. Not everything that says interest is actually interest. People confuse interest and return quite a lot. But let's say you go from 50 to 100 and see what that does. That takes it to 42,000. And that could pay for the university fees. That could be used as part of the deposit of the houses. I mean, who knows what house prices will be like in 18 years' time. But this is a good deal, and you don't have to worry about inheritance tax as well. And this goes to show you don't really need large amounts, like even small amounts given consistently over time. And investing in the right things can add up to huge amounts. And you don't need to be an investment expert. You can invest in assets as simple as gold. For example, I have a video on gold and the best way to invest in it that can also be used within an ISA, which you can check out here. Look, the tax bill is going to keep going up, so it's really upon you to do whatever you can to reduce the amount of tax you pay legally so you can keep more of your wage and use that money how you see fit.